prices would rise, jobs would be lost, opportunities would be destroyed, businesses would go, investment would be cut, an economic minefield that has been created as a result of policies that have not been thought through. And never have I seen in such a short period of time so many warnings from so many people about the danger and the damage that could be done. And I say to Alexander, you can ignore or try to ignore some of the warnings some of the time, but you cannot ignore all of the warnings all of the time. I think is the bigger picture for the future, because this is not just a decision for ourselves and for this generation, it is a decision for many generations to come. And I want you to think of a speech that was made 50 years ago by John Kennedy, the President of the United States of America. And he gave his inaugural address in 1961, and he spoke of the new world that he thought could be created. There were some great phrases in that speech. You know, the torch is passed to a new generation about the prospects for a generation led by young people. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. A statement of the importance of public service that I think we all endorse. Never negotiate from fear, never fear to negotiate. A call for diplomacy rather than conflict as a solution to the problems of making peace in the world. He had beaten Richard Nixon, the man who wanted to be president, defeated in that election. And Richard Nixon was asked which of these famous phrases and all of the phrases in that great speech would you like to deliver? And he answered there was only one. I solemnly promise that I will execute the office of President of the United States of America. But you know, the greatest statement that John Kennedy made then was, ask not what you Americans can do for yourself. Ask what we together as citizens of the world can do for the future of mankind. And he went on to give this famous speech in Philadelphia. He said, the past generations, we had a declaration of independence. It's now time, he said, for a declaration of interdependence. And you know, there are no nations in the world that have found a way of living together in the way that Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland have managed to do. Over 3 centuries between Scotland and England, and just think of defence and security. There is not a battlefield in Europe where Scots, English, Welsh and Northern Irish people did not fight together and fight side by side. There is not a cemetery in Europe that came out of that war where Scots, English, Welsh and Irish are not lying side by side. And when someone was injured during that war, did they say to each other, are you Scots or English or Welsh or Irish? They said no. They would help each other. They fought together. They sacrificed together. They cried, they celebrated together, they mourned together, and we won freedom against fascism by fighting and working together. That we've come together for defence and security. Think of the economy as well. There's a famous story about a Scotsman on his way to the Wembley Football International. And he's in this crowded underground train. And someone shouts, and hears the shout, penicillin! And they rush and they think, can we get a doctor? Is this man really ill? And then suddenly the man shouts again, penicillin, chloroform, he says, and people wonder what they're going to do. And then he says, penicillin, chloroform, the steam engine, the telephone, the television. We Scots are the greatest and most inventive nation on earth. But you know there's a bigger truth behind that. James Watt is steam engine. Invented in Scotland, developed by Matthew Boulton in England. Alexander Fleming, penicillin, invented in London by a Scot who needed the support of Oxford and Cambridge to develop it. Alexander Graham Bell, the telephone the same. John Logie Baird. And the television, developed in Hastings by a man who came from Helensburgh. And then in Scotland, all these inventors, Ian Wilmot to this day, but before him, all these men, James Black and others, English people who came to Scotland, who made their inventions in Scotland. And what the truth is, the cross-fertilization of ideas that made possible the great successes in our economy in the past. But you know, I want to point to something even bigger. Think of 90 years ago, the aftermath of the First World War, unemployment at its worst. It was Scots, leaders and Scots workers, who came together in 1921, and they said to each other, we want an end to the separate Scottish rule law. We want to build together with the rest of the United Kingdom a United Kingdom welfare state. And then in the 1940s, we had a decision to make about the health system. And it was Scots who led the way and said, look, it doesn't make sense just to have a separately funded Scottish healthcare system. They wanted to get away from a situation where nurses were having to leave the beds of patients to run charity flag days to pay for vital equipment. They said, no, let us build a United Kingdom funded healthcare system, universal, free at the point of need, where we pool and share the resources of the whole of the United Kingdom so that we can deliver healthcare for all. And that's the secret of what has happened over these last 100 years. Whatever your nationality, Scots, English, Welsh, Irish, the same economic and social rights, based on need and not on what ethnic group you come from. And you know, there's no other group of nations in the world has managed this. Australia and New Zealand? No. The countries in the European? No. The Germans will not provide the same support for the Greeks that we provide for each other in the United Kingdom. Even in the United States of America, they cannot agree on the same social and economic rights to health care and to welfare between one of the states in the Union and the other. And though they cannot develop the social and economic rights that go with the civil and political rights we have. So we have created something quite unique in the United Kingdom. When you're unemployed and need help, when you're sick and need health care, when you're young and need child benefit, when you're old and need a pension, it's a UK-wide pension system, a UK-wide healthcare system, a UK-wide welfare state, and we have found a way where 4 different groups, different nationalities, great loyalties, tremendous traditions, tremendous histories, together, we have found a way where we can unite and work together for the common good. And I happen to believe that that is not the way of the past, it is the way of the future as well. I happen to believe that working together better in the future. That cooperation and solidarity and interdependence rather than independence is the bigger idea of the future. Now I say that and yield to no one in my pride in being Scottish. Born in Scotland, brought up in Scotland, even when I worked in London, my home was in Scotland. And I too have got the patriotic. Don't let any nationalist tell you that you are less patriotic in your support for Scotland. All of you will have memories. My first memory, Scotland, England Football International. I was listening to it on the radio. 1961. 8 minutes, goal for England. 12 minutes, goal for England. England 9, Scotland 3. And it was a game of football and not rugby. There were players in that team who denied being on the field that day. Dave Mackay, the famous Hawks player, he actually scored one of the 3 goals for Scotland. And he kept saying he never played in the match. Frank Harvey was the goalkeeper. You may remember, Celtic goalkeeper. He lost 9 goals that day, and things got so tough for him. He had to go as far away from Scotland as possible, and he emigrated to Australia. 30 years later, in the 1990s, Dennis Law, one of our great footballers, was in Australia on holiday, and he looked at Frank Haffey. And Frank Haffey's first question, is it safe to come back? And of course the answer was no. So I need to know one in my patriotic pride to be Scottish. And this is our patriotic vision for Scotland's future. Proud to be Scottish. Proud in our institutions and history. Proud that we have created the Scottish Parliament. Proud too that it's going to have more powers. But proud that we share and cooperate as part of the bigger United Kingdom. And that's the alternative to the nationalist view of the future. Now think what this referendum choice is really about when it comes down to it. The nationalists want you to think that you're voting on whether Scotland is a nation. Scotland is a nation yesterday, today and tomorrow, and will be a nation after September the 19th, and they want you to think you're voting on whether Scotland has a parliament. Well, Scotland has a parliament because we had a referendum more than 10 years ago to create that parliament. That's not what it's about. They want you to think you're voting on whether the parliament should have more powers, as if there is no agreement now that every party and the represented here this evening have all agreed that Parliament will have no powers. More powers. That's not what it's about. Some of them want you to think it's a vote on the Conservative government. I know what side I would be on in that vote. But no, what is this vote about? It's about one simple proposition when it comes down to it. What would be the effect of voting yes on September the 18th? It is blunt and it is brutal. It is to privatise and cut the budgets of the health service in Scotland. It is trying to tell people that he is powerless at the moment to make for a better health service and provide the money it needs. They try to tell you that separation is the only possibility if you want to save the health service. This is the biggest lie that is being perpetrated. I was born into the National Health Service, grew up in the National Health Service, came of age in the National Health Service. What happened to me and what's happened to other people makes me love and revere and respect the National Health Service. Do you think that we, particularly us, the party that created the National Health Service, that built the National Health Service, would stand back and do nothing if we thought the National Health Service could be privatised and cut as a result of a decision made by the UK without any intervention possible by the Scottish Government? No. The powers of the Scottish Parliament make it clear that we can guarantee to everyone here today that the National Health Service will remain in public hands, be universal and free at the point of need, forever or as long as the people of Scotland wish it, and we must tell people